Okay. And I guess it just comes back to like if you're rooting your truth in again, like I think the respect of the unknown is fundamental to me personally in my theology. And I'm not really seeking someone else's explanation for things that they couldn't possibly know. And that's why I do believe like theology is a sort of personal experience. And by the way, that is the antique view of religion, as far as like from antiquity.
Mhm.
That was the way that the Greeks and Romans looked at it. And it's the way a lot of theologians in the Middle Ages and in fucking the Quattrocentro and 1400s Italy and shit. That's the way they looked at it too. That's the way a lot of people in Nazi Germany looked at it too.
Yeah, sure. I see what you mean, but
That's the European.
again, not to
Mhm.
belabor the point, but I'm just saying, like, something being old doesn't mean it's right. And ultimately, again, like, you're sort of like assuming it's unknowable. Well, what if it is knowable? Would you not want to know that it is knowable and
So you just
ultimately
have to
know it?
show me how you know it or what you know.
I mean, yeah, I can demonstrate the argument if you're interested, but if you don't want it, that's fine too. You know what I mean?
Is it a Christian argument? Because yeah, I don't want to hear it if it is. That's fine. I'll just be ignorant, I guess. That's what I mean. I believe in the unknown and that you can't know the unknown. And then you're telling me, well, you can. Here's my argument. And that's where I'm like, no, no, no. That's okay. And that's
Sure,
sort
I'm
of what
just saying that. Okay,
brings a halt to
is
the
it like
conversation.
how do you even like actually know objectively for a fact that it is unknown? That's sort of like an assumption. That's sort of the argument that I'm making, right? And then there's like the second step of that, which is demonstrating that it is known. Again, we don't have to
I
belabor
believe
that. I'm just
an
like saying in
unknown
general.
exists. I believe there are things you cannot know.
Sure, I agree with that.
Okay.
But that
Well,
doesn't mean like any sort of metaphysical entity is wholly unknown necessarily.
um, uh, I think you get to a certain point where you can't possibly know things. But yes, I mean, not everything. You could know something, and then you could express it in however way. Sure. I mean, I'm not. Again, I
I agree
just
with
don't
that. I mean,
really get
yeah,
this. To me, this is just philosophical debate, and I acknowledge that you're good at it, and like you find it interesting. I just think it's
that's
not
flattering.
very.
Thank you.
Um, yep. I just think it's not really like how I want to spend my time. Does that make sense?
I see your point. Yeah, that's like, yeah, different sort of personality types. Are attracted to certain fields and certain
And
proclivities.
I
I see that, but
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I just encourage you should check out Ezra Pound and see what he had to say on the matter because he had a lot to say, and he did a
Never
fair.
actually heard of him.
Oh man, I'll send you some PDFs.
Brutal. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure.
It's not. He wasn't even as hostile to Christianity as I am, or he
Hmm.
probably was. He just didn't say it, but whatever.
I don't mind really, honestly. Like, I'm not like, oh, they're anti-Christian. I'm not gonna listen to a word they say. Like, I don't roll that way. I'm open to hearing, anything and everything.
Well, if you want to go to some of the Greek philosophy, as far as like the Platonists and the people that followed Plato, and there was Socrates, Aristotle, fucking Zeno. I
Hmm.
mentioned this on the
Yeah, what
stream
about him?
earlier. Have you heard of Zeno? Xenophanes. I don't
Not
know how
quite.
you say it.
Yeah, I guess I heard the name
Okay,
before,
so
but not really familiar.
this is from the thing I just sent you, but
Hmm.
Aristotle considered Zeno the father of dialectic.
Hmm.
Um, Xenophanes was, they tell us, a troubadour who went about in Hellas, blah, 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 to propagate a doctrine more religious than philosophic, with the humor to say
Hmm.
African gods have snub noses, the Nordic gods are blonde with blue eyes. If lions and oxen could paint, we should doubtless see them also making gods in their image.
Hmm.
So that was his point there. Hold on. Let me just keep scrolling. Sorry. Okay, mechanism, how it works, teleology, what it's aimed at, the soul of the world, the fire of the gods. Remembering, of course, that, quote, the history of philosophy, when dealing with the Greek start, now flickers about among fragments, and that every word is used, defined, left undefined, wangled, and wrangled according to the taste of the wrangler, his temperament, and his own bias.
Hmm.
In a sense, the philosophic orbit of the Occident is already defined. European thought was to continue in a species of cycle of crisis, grin and bear it, enjoy life. Or as they say, originality of speculative research or guesswork was exhausted with Aristotle.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm trying to get down underneath the whole Greek time had been a mythopoeic sense concerned with the unnamed. Confucian did not pester his son with questions. It is recorded that he once asked the boy, had he read the Odes, which is like the Chinese poem or whatever. Pythagoras
Mhm.
imposed 5 years of silence. You can't write a book about that. Here we go. This is about the Stoics. So Zeno excogitated or created through thought a system of conduct that could be followed, or at least he himself was reputed to have practiced his own injunctions about 300 BC. There must have been some fiber in the teaching as the, quote, school persisted, with various respected names emerging, Chrysippus, Scipio, Cicero, Cato the Younger, blah, 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 until it petered out in Marcus Aurelius. It was a system of ethics with logic and cosmology as periphery. The Stoics did have some respect for terminology, with an emphasis on the individual object. Reality existed only in the particular. Universals were to them subjective concepts formed by abstraction. The syllogism was counted as, quote, merely a grammatical form. It didn't pull any weight, was merely useful for hypothesis and dissociation, but it didn't prove anything. And in that position lies the intellectual greatness of the school of the porch, that the syllogism was not apodictic, but anapodictic. After all the Greek blather, here they got their teeth into something. So there you go. I believe all that.
I see what you mean. Yeah, very interesting stuff. But it seems like, yeah, I mean, I see what you mean. I see it as like sort of like it has some sort of intuitive aspect to it, but ultimately, it's just like it's self-contradictory as a worldview. It's incoherent, I would say, and
Really? How so?
objectively speaking, that is. Like, if, for example, like the denial of universals. Well, that basically puts you into nominalism, which itself is problematic. If you deny universals, then that sort of like undermines objective reality itself. If everything is a particular, then you can't really, like, you can't even predicate using language. You can't say, like, white people or
But do you
humans or
admit the
trees. You can't use any of these
Do
predicates.
you
They're
admit
meaningless.
the like? And disagree, but do you think that universals
Mm.
are like sufficient? Like, do you think
For
you
what
can?
exactly?
Do you think you can boil everything down into universals?
Well, not everything. It's like that's how I view it, as like it's a false dialectic. Universals are real, but that doesn't mean particulars are not real either, right? But that's sort of like
Sure, but that's what
the
they're saying.
no, but they're saying that universals don't actually have an ontological existence. That's where the disagreement is. So ultimately, you don't really
Correct.
have like a
Yes.
white race. You just like have people whom we call white
Correct.
colloquially as individuals.
Correct.
That is
That
just
is
like
true.
that is completely silly to me. Like
It's
you
not
have
that
to
silly.
sort of like have this. I
Yes,
mean, it
we
kind of
use
is. I
them
mean, it's
because
also,
they're useful. Absolutely, but they're not. You could. They're
but they're also
the
true. They're
borderlines
actually.
are arbitrarily chosen. Or you could
I mean,
choose
could
them
you say
based
that
on a
like?
variety of different, reasons. You could
I mean,
draw
sure,
the
you could.
defining line and call something white that I wouldn't call white. We might have different definitions of what we consider white, and for different reasons. So that, I mean, to me,
Sure.
that plays exactly into my argument. But that makes sense because we both
That-
go at it from our own worldview and rationalize it. So
I mean, sure, but I mean that's like like race. Is somewhat fuzzy on the edges. But ultimately, as even like the National Socialists, they believe no, there is like an actual tangible thing that's called the Germanic race or the white race. Hitler himself even made reference to the white race on multiple occasions. I don't
Mhm.
think it's necessarily meaningless, and it sort of like undermines the whole white nationalist project if you say that actually
No,
white
no, no,
people as
no.
a
You're
collective doesn't
misunderstanding.
really exist.
No, you're misunderstanding. I'm not saying that, and he's not saying that. So
I know you're not saying that, but I'm saying that's the logical entailment of it.
no, it's not. No, it's not. Um, just because a terms in language by definition aren't going to be 100% accurate in that they direct in what you mean to the word. You're never going to
Sure,
have
but
that. And that's what poetry is all about, is trying to get to that as close to 100% as possible.
it doesn't
And
have to be 100% though. It's just like the basic principle of predication. Do these words actually refer to something, right? Like if I say
they
tree, like yeah, sure, like it's just like an abstract sort of arbitrary word that we use, tree, but
no,
we're
yes,
referring to something that is concrete,
correct,
that is
yes, but
universal, right?
what is a tree? I mean, that's my point, is like I would call something a tree that you might call a bush.
Hmm.
That's why we start to delineate between words. That's why we expand the vocabulary. Like, how did language start? Like, yeah, we probably started with a couple fundamental words, but as we wanted, the words were insufficient to express our minds. And so delineations and demarcations necessarily occurred.
Sure, but that's sort of like again, like yeah, obviously there's going to be fuzzy boundaries around any category, but to
So
deny the
that's their
categories
point, is that
themselves, no, but
no,
like
it's
to
not
ultimately
denying the
deny them is sort
category
of.
itself. It's not. That's where you're confused. So I don't know what to tell
I
you.
mean, well, you can read it again. You literally
It's
said that they believed
utility.
in.
It's the utility. You're
Sure,
not. Yes, so the thing in and of itself supersedes the category or the universal law that's being applied to the thing.
and that
That's what
is
they
yeah,
believe.
that is where I would say it's really coherent. Like yeah, again with the tree versus the bush example, you would still say there is a universal called plants or vegetation, and both of those things, however we define them, still fall under that universal category, right? Would that not be
Yeah,
the
yeah,
case?
because it's useful to classify things, but then we start to go to the edge examples, and then it doesn't hold up. Like, then we get to, like, algae, and then we get to things that are on the borderline. I mean,
Well,
what
okay.
do
Let
you
me ask
call
you this.
life?
Let me
Like, is
ask you this.
bacteria life? Like, are we on the same level of bacteria as far
Okay,
as, like,
hold on.
our the fire within us to live? I don't know.
Let me ask you this: is logic universal?
Yeah, I think that's the best, universal thing that there is.
So yeah, I mean, it's self-evident. That's what I'm saying. It's like you cannot really deny universals as such. You can sort of like poke holes in certain categories or stuff like that, but ultimately universals ontologically have an existence, such as the case with logic, mathematics, the laws of physics. All these different things are not subjective. They're not created by the human mind. We're simply codifying something that exists in the real world, and it is not tangible. It is not empirical. You cannot like observe logic under a rock. You can't see it under a microscope. It is
Sure.
metaphysical by nature, and it is also simultaneously
No, I'm with
universal.
you on all that, and I think there is a utility to logic and abstractions in general.
But that's like I guess this is where the impasse is. It's just
But
like
it doesn't
I'm not
prove
looking at it.
anything to mint, like, it doesn't do anything. It's not the fundamental basis, like, these, like, other considerations supersede mere syllogisms or mere, like, logical consistent like, logic.
Mhm.
Because you can
Well, I
have
guess
things that are inherently
yeah.
logical, but they are stupid uses of your time. Like, we could sit here and argue about, how many pennies can we fit in the room, and we could, like, go about the whole it's about how you spend your time and what you value. It's about actually valuing things.
Well, I would just
That's
say
the
that
point,
that's a
is there's not
misused.
value in, like, in logic themselves are a tool that you cannot put your entire value into, because then you don't
I
you're
agree.
not actually expressing anything yourself.
I agree. I'm not a rationalist. I'm not saying logic is the be all end all. I'm just saying it's an example of a universal actually being real, right? And I guess this is like where the impasse is, where you're sort of looking at it from a utilitarian perspective, where whatever is has utility, we should keep. Whatever doesn't, we should discard. And I'm more thinking like, okay,
Yes.
I sort of like have this ontological view of truth as such, like a capital T truth. That truth does exist. right? And I'm sort of like seeking after what is that is true, and not just what is that is useful or
Sure,
what
so, like,
is
in what context?
utilitarian.
Like, mathematical proofs and stuff? Or, like, I mean, what else is, like, super
That is a part
true
of
to
it, yeah.
you? So
That is
mathematics
a part of
and
it, yeah.
okay.
Mathematics, the laws of physics, logic, all these different things are aspects of, you know, created universals. They're real. They're actually real. They're not time dependent. They're not place dependent. The laws of logic were not different like yesterday or 1,000 years ago, or they're not going to be different,
But aren't they
5,000
just
years from now.
yeah, so they're expressions of something real, and they stand up to, like,
Correct.
logical coherence and scrutiny. I agree with all that, but as you know, like, even within the world of mathematics, I mean, you can express things entirely differently in ways that are, like, still true, but, like, completely different denotations of something, right? Like, obviously, like, we use a base 10
Hmm.
system for everything. That hasn't been the case
Hmm.
for all of human history. They used a base 60 system back in Babylon. Like, we use the
Right.
binary system on our fucking computers. Like, there's
Correct. Yeah.
utility. There is certain ways in which you express things that aren't just it's only like,
Well,
yes,
I
there's
would say
truth
this.
to the world. Like, there's logic,
Hmm.
sure, but again, it has to be rooted in, like, value, I guess is my thing.
Yeah, no disagreement at all. I mean, with your example of mathematics, you're saying, yeah, there's different systems and different ways to express. But I would say ultimately, it's like
Mhm.
different ways of expressing the same underlying universal truth, right? It's not that they're contradictory.
Sure.
They're just different ways of expressing the
But
same
even
thing.
like, what are you
Ultimately,
express like in this hypothetical or abstraction? Like, we're expressing like the truth of something, right? Like the height of something, or so. Like, you can measure things, right? Like, we can sit here and like
sure,
we can agree that this is like 6 feet tall or whatever, and I could say, well, it's 180 centimeters or whatever. And you're like, yeah, okay, I see.
correct.
We're
Yeah,
going to a different thing. Like, we're getting in, but like it sort of relies on like the physical thing that we're measuring as well for it to even be relevant.
yeah. That's where the utility comes in, right? You can misuse math to you can waste your time trying to measure like the number of fucking blades of grass or whatever. That would be a complete waste of time. But again, that's sort of like a misuse of the tool rather than an undermining of the tool
Sure.
itself. And I'm just using math and logic as examples of real universals that have an ontological existence beyond just the subjective human mind. They're mind independent, right?
Okay.
That's sort of like the first step in the overarching
Okay.
argument, I guess.
Yeah, they're a
So just
priori
like
or
to
whatever.
demonstrate the principle. Yeah, for sure. And the next step from there is, okay, well, if everyone sort of like presupposes math, logic, the laws of physics, all these different things, and we agree they're not mind dependent. Okay, then what's the justification for that? From a sort of like empiricist worldview, you can't really
Sorry, can you go
justify
back
them
like 10
because
seconds? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, can you
I'm
hear me?
sorry. Yeah, I had trouble on my end. Yeah, like
Yeah,
10
no
seconds
worries.
ago, you said, sorry if
Uh-huh.
you can't, just like your last 2 sentences. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll repeat that. No worries. What I was saying is, okay, so if we all are on the same page in regard to math and logic, that they are real and they're universal and they're mind independent, then the next, logical question is, well, can you actually give an account for these things? Can you give a justification for why you believe in these things that are not material and that you cannot necessarily observe through sense data, right? And then that's when you, by definition, delve into the realm of metaphysics.
I see. You're saying like, what is the purpose of these things or something? Or
Well,
I guess I'm
purpose is
sort of lost.
teleology. That is sort of related, but I'm asking more of like an epistemic question of how do you even justify the existence of these things? Can you give an account for how or why these things actually exist? If we agree that they do exist, right? We're already on that same
No,
page. And
no, I don't think we
you,
can. Do you think we
you
can
can't what
give a
exactly?
justification for why they exist?
Yeah, yeah, that's sort of like where the entire worldview comes into place, right? Epistemology specifically
That's where
is
theology
you
comes
do.
in.
Sorry.
I don't think you think you can know the purpose of, these things?
Again, I'm telling you, like, purpose is a part of it, but that's sort of like a separate question. I'm just asking for the
Okay.
justification, like the epistemic grounding for why you believe in that thing, right? Why do you
S
hold to these concepts? Why do you believe in logic? Can you actually give an account for logic? Can you justify how logic is, right? That's sort of the question, the epistemic question.
so
And from an empiricist worldview,
why is
yeah,
logic
go ahead.
why does logic exist, is what you're saying or something?
No, I'm not asking about the telos. I'm not talking about teleology. I'm not asking about the why. I'm asking about
Okay.
the how.
How does
I'm
it
asking about the
exist?
how. How does it exist, right? And can you
Okay.
actually justify its existence? Can you give a grounding for it? Can you give a justification?
How do you think it
That's what.
exists?
Well, that's sort of the thing. There are preconditions for knowledge, right? I think we all agree there's knowledge. Knowledge is real. You can attain knowledge about different things. Knowledge in itself as a category does exist. What are the preconditions for those? You have, the laws of logic, mathematics, all these different things, right? The preconditions. You have predication, um, time, identity over time, all these different abstract metaphysical concepts
Hmm.
that give way to the possibility of knowledge. If you don't have logic, then knowledge becomes impossible, right? Is
Not
that correct?
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Can you give like an
You can know
example as
something. Yeah, I could have a state of mind that I'm in that could be illogical, but it's just like an expression of how I feel.
yeah, but is it true? We're talking about knowledge, right? Knowledge is objective, it is true. It is not dependent upon
Yeah,
your
it's how I
feelings or
feel. I could feel irrationally, right?
yeah, but wait, can you say that again?
I could feel irrationally.
Sure, but how is that relevant to whether or not you have knowledge?
Well, isn't it true that that I could know that I like am in that state or something? I don't know. I just
I mean,
don't see
can you?
how
I mean,
logic
there's
is
like,
necessarily like I would say like I know again, like what do you really know? Like
well, for
not much
example,
of
I'll give you an
anything.
example, right? Like, what are, what's one of the classical laws of logic? It's the law of non-contradiction, which is you can have something, you can have, a contradiction, basically. You can have P and not P simultaneously. You can't say the grass is green, but it's also blue, right? That's the law of non-contradiction. And if you
Sure.
don't have that law, then you really cannot have knowledge. You're basically becoming incoherent. You're just rambling. You're saying, yeah, the grass is green and it's blue and it's red, and it's like you're contradicting yourself. Ultimately, that's not knowledge. That's just like random, noise coming out of your mouth. That's not really actually predicating of anything in the real world. It's not actual knowledge, right? So that's sort of what I mean by when I say you need, like, as a hard necessity, you need a lot of the laws of logic to have knowledge, to even have the possibility of having knowledge. Does that make
I'm
sense?
just not sure
I mean, can you give me an
do I
example
really
where
need
like you
knowledge
can arrive
to
at knowledge?
feel the warmth of a fire? Do I need like a logic in that? Like where's the
Sure,
logic
because
in that?
you could apply the law of non-contradiction as well. Okay, so you put your hand on the fucking fire, right? And
Uh-huh.
then you could say, "Oh, I'm feeling cold and I'm feeling hot." Like, okay, that's again the law of non-contradiction violated again, and then you're just incoherent, right? So yeah, even
Okay.
when in regard to feelings and subjective states, you still
I mean,
rely
look, I'm
on
willing to use
logic.
logic. Like I'm all for logic. I just it needs
Hmm.
to be rooted in something.
Yeah, well, no disagreement, but I'm just like sort of like demonstrating the principle that logic is necessary. It's not like an optional thing. It's not like an add-on. It's like a hard necessity for knowledge to be even possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Right, and then as I said, like if we're on the same page in regard to the real ontological existence of logic, then the next question is how do you even have logic? You know, how do you justify the existence of logic? Because you can't observe logic. You can't like go under a microscope and see, oh, okay, yeah, here's the law of non-contradiction. You can't do that. So it is
Hmm.
inherently abstract. It
I
is
mean, you can
by
demonstrate it in
definition
the real world, right?
metaphysical.
I mean, somewhat. Like,
Yeah,
didn't
you
we
can
just do that
demonstrate
with
it,
the
but
fire example? That's kind of my whole point.
sure, that you can demonstrate it, but you're not justifying it. There's a difference between
Oh, of
those two things,
course. Well, that's my point is you
right?
can't no yeah, you can't now we're getting into things that we probably like we can't really possibly know.
Well, that's where I disagree. That's where the entire field of epistemology comes in, where it asks these very fundamental questions about the nature of knowledge itself, right? And that's sort of the question where, well, okay, if logic exists, then how do you justify it? Sure, you can demonstrate it. You can demonstrate that it works consistently and universally, but how do you even
Here's my problem.
justify the existence
Here's
of
my
logic
problem.
as a category? Go ahead.
I agree with logic and all that. Like I'm on board. Like y'all logic is very useful and I'm all about it, okay?
And
And
it's
part
also
of my
true, not just useful.
reaction sure, it's true. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Mm,
But here's my thing is that like
mhm.
it doesn't really serve us actually, or to the degree that it doesn't serve us, it's sort of like a waste of time, and it can even like confuse you or waste your time. I mean, like you're talking about
I mean, you can
knowledge,
say
and
that about
you're
everything.
just let me finish, bro. Uh,
You go ahead, go ahead.
you're talking about knowledge, and like you want to know, like if I were to say, like, tell me about someone in history or a people or like an expression, like that's where you get into the realm of poetry. Like, I
Right.
just don't really see how, like, logic I mean, they could be a good eloquent speaker and use the logic of the language. I agree that there are, like, laws within the language and things that exist or melodic elements that are logical and
Mhm,
rooted in music and, sort of I'm on board with all that, but there's,
mm.
like, an emotional element of knowing something that is also necessary, and these things are, like, weighed, and I think the emotional element supersedes the logical as far as knowing something.
Correct, I agree, like, again, I'm not, like, a rationalist, I'm not, like,
Okay.
like a Platonist per se, I'm just saying that I'm sort of, like, just demonstrating the principle that logic has to exist for
Well,
anything
you
else to
convinced
function.
me. I agree, logic exists.
Right. And then yeah, of course, like if you want to know something truly, you can't just like, like throw like for example, if you say I know, X person, I know Henry, right? There's like there's someone could be, for example, in a hypothetical, right? Someone has read about Henry, right? Henry Holtz, right? You have a Wikipedia page, whatever, and they go on the
Uh,
Wikipedia page, they have memorized the entire thing, the entire list of little factoids about you. They know all of that
right,
by heart. But you wouldn't really say that they know you. Well, they know about you,
correct.
but to know you, they would need to interact with you, have a sort of like a relationship on a human level, right? So I'm not
Yes.
disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that still like logic underpins everything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying okay, so I agree with everything you just said. My whole thing is that we should focus way less on, like, syllogisms and logical inquiries than emotional and moral, states of being of, like, ourselves, of other people,
Mm.
of the world in general.
I'm not even saying that's wrong, but then the question, that begs the question of, okay, where do you even, do you even have an objective moral system? Where do you
No.
derive your morals from? Are they justified? All these different questions spring up, and it's not just like as simple as like, okay, we need to focus on this and that. All right, you need to,
Well,
justify
let's
all of
just
that as
start with
well.
you. Why don't you just start with yourself, though? Like, do you have moral intuitions, or do you think they come from externally, or like, I mean,
I think they're both.
okay, yeah,
I think that yeah, there is like a moral intuition within every person, and they can sense to a degree what is correct from what is wrong. But simultaneously, according to Christian theology, we are in a fallen world, and therefore the faculties of man have been distorted, and they're not always reliable as they used to be before the fall, right?
yeah. By the way, he really Ezra Pound.
Yeah.
He really appreciated like some of the and I'm on board actually. Some of the Catholic theologians and stuff. Like there was a lot of smart guys that were basically financed by the Catholic Church to, sit around and think about these things and put a lot of effort into them.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah, I think that
philosoph
even as a non-Christian, you can like sort of appreciate at least some aspects of Christian theology to some extent.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah,
know.
especially and I was sort of ignorant to it because yeah, I was obviously like, "Oh, I reject Christianity," type, but, when you just look at the guys and what they were writing on or the way that they were expressing themselves, the logic they were using,
Mm.
some of it's, like, really impressive, and it's even higher stuff than was written by, like, Aristotle or Plato in my and from the stuff I've read, I'm impressed.
For sure.
So, and a lot of people are ignorant to that, sort of like, purposely hidden or whatnot,
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. I
but
appreciate that you're like, sort of like not like completely hostile, even if you disagree. I think that's like the sort of like the healthy mindset to be at, right?
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Like with me, like obviously I'm not a pagan, but I can still appreciate aspects about, paganism. I do believe there is like wisdom to be found in there for sure. Even if I
Mhm.
don't ultimately agree, there's aspects that I do admire.
Yeah, I guess I just don't, fret or focus so much on
Mm,
other people's theology, I guess. It's like, dude, I don't even know my own theology, and I think about these things pretty hard. So it's like to assume that everybody's like completely knows exactly what, like, that's just sort of preposterous. It's like I'll let them try to figure that out. I'll let them try to make sense of it because I don't think it.
Hmm.
You're never gonna square that circle, perfectly. It can't be done, but in my opinion. But you can reach, you can
Hmm.
use logic. You can use fundamental understandings or presuppositions or things that
Hmm.
you come to learn through experience. Yeah, it's all there. But
I agree.
I'm just not big on like, shoehorning yourself into like any, exact mode of thought or philosophy in general.
I mean, I
I think
guess I can see how it's like, it feels like constraining or, you know, like putting
if you're
constraints
not,
around, yourself and stuff like that. But my
if
my
you
point of view
are,
is like, go
well, I
ahead, yeah.
just want to say, if you are going to do something like that, like if you're
Mm,
like, look, this is my philosophy and I have it really, I have scrutinized it appropriately, till the cows come home or whatever. Like I have put the effort and the psychological and the mind, the willpower to really understand this and put it forth into the world. And this is what I believe. Like you have to accompany it with real, tangible customs and things in the physical world that like make it real from a
I
collective
agree,
point of view.
100%, 100%. That's
Otherwise,
that's
it's just
also,
useless.
yeah. Go ahead,
That's it. That's it.
keep going, yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say that's sort of like the problem with Protestantism. Aside from like the goofy, wacky theology, it's like it's just not historical, right? And history certainly is a part of a part of the theology and part of the religion, the entire worldview. Wait, give me a second. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm back. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I'm not like disregarding history or poetry or tradition or customs and all that. They're certainly like an integral part of the whole, the whole of the worldview. Right, and that's sort of like where I found appreciation in Eastern Orthodoxy, where it has all of these things. You know, it has a very long-standing tradition. It has these customs, the music. It's actually very good. I would say, objectively speaking, like Orthodox chants, they actually go hard. Even if you're not like on
Oh,
board with the
chance.
theology, some of that
Oh
stuff
no,
goes
I
hard.
like chants. Chants are good stuff. We don't have enough chants. I like
For
chants.
real, yeah. The chants
Um,
and the hymns, and I like it.
yeah, no, I
Even if
would
I
join
wasn't
it
Orthodox, it's very
cynically
appealing.
just for that. Yeah, no doubt. Nah, not cynically, but it would be tough to square. But here, let me read this actually, if you don't
Good.
mind. All right, so he references this guy, Fin- Finola, Finolosa, in his essay.
Hmm.
He said his essay was far ahead of his time. He did not proclaim his method as a method. He was trying to explain the Chinese ideograph as a means of transmission and registration of thought. He got to the root of the matter, to the root of the difference between what is valid in Chinese thinking and invalid or misleading in a great deal of European thinking and language. The simplest statement I can make of his meaning is as follows. In Europe, if you ask a man to define anything, his definition always moves away from the simple things that he knows perfectly well. It recedes into an unknown region. That is a region of remoter and progressively remoter abstraction. Thus, if you ask him what red is, he says it is a color. If you ask him what a color is, he tells you it's a vibration or refraction of light or a division of the spectrum. And if you ask him what vibration is, he tells you it's a mode of energy or something of that sort until you arrive at a modality of being or non being. Or at any rate, you get in beyond your depth and beyond his depth. Um, well, we could stop there for a second. What do you think of that?
Very interesting. Yeah, and
Oh,
I
let me just
guess
continue then. In the Middle
yeah. Go
Ages,
ahead. Yeah.
in the Middle Ages, when there wasn't any material science as we now understand it, when human knowledge could not make automobiles run or electricity carry language through the air, etc., when
Hmm.
learning consisted in little more than splitting up of terminology, there was a good deal of care for terminology, and the general exactitude in the use of abstract terms may have been higher. I mean, a medieval theologian took care not to define a dog in terms that would have applied just as well to a dog's tooth or its hide, or the noise it makes when lapping water. But all your teachers will tell you that science developed more rapidly after Bacon had suggested the direct examination of phenomena. And after Galileo had stopped discussing things and had really begun to look at them and to invent, like the telescope, a means of seeing them better. So there you go. There's more, but I mean, yeah, that's good.
Sure, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that necessarily. Empirical data is valid, but I'm just saying that it's not the be all end all, right? Because empirical data itself relies on
Well,
other abstract conceptions of, such as logic. Again, the laws of physics. They're not. You can't observe them as such. They're abstract or metaphysical by nature, but yet you rely on them to even conduct,
well, how do you feel
scientific
about that
inquiries or
drifting
experiments.
away? Don't I just feel that like, and it's not a, it's an aesthetic that I like feel, or a taste that I
Hmm.
have, where it's like this like drifting away from what's like real and tangible and of the senses to like finding this like safety and abstraction. And I get it. Like I'm not discounting that, logic exists and it's real and it's
Hmm.
tangible. Like I'm on board. Like you got me convinced. But
Hmm.
again, like the tangible things like exist. And I don't think constantly like dragging the conversation away from the essence of things is very productive.
I agree actually, and again, that
Yeah.
sort of like goes back into why I'm Orthodox specifically. It's because it is not just theory; it is also praxis simultaneously. It's both, right? It's not just just like random abstracted theology. That is a part of it, but there's also the tangible part of attending the divine liturgy. Giving, smelling the incense. Seeing and touching the icons, hearing the chants and the hymns, like all these different things. So I feel like it's a bit of a false dialectic of abstract versus tangible. I think again you can have both at once, and that's why you need like an all-encompassing worldview that can actually harmonize these things. And that's why something like, again, Protestantism doesn't really work because it's very much ahistorical, and aside from that, it's also in a lot of ways very much abstracted, right?
Yeah,
And
no,
that's also the issue with
Protestantism is
like
particularly bad. It's
rationalism.
perverted
Rationalism,
as
for
well.
example, like sorry, yeah, say it again.
I just said that's why there's a lot of perversions within Protestantism.
Correct. Yeah, all these errors in theology are downstream from these very basic, tangible worship rituals. Right. If you mess that up, then everything else is gonna fall apart eventually, and that's what has happened. Right. And that's also why I'm not a fan of like rationalism or like Platonism as such, because it's very conceptual, and there's no real focus on the concrete, the tangible, as you said. So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. There's a lot of wisdom in fucking Ezra Pound, man. I
Hmm.
mean, if you got something better, please send it to me, because to me, this is like the peak of fucking anything written. I mean, anything that I've read. To be honest, I've read a lot.
It is pretty good thus far. I will say it is very good, but you just, I guess, like the next step is just like to have like this, again, as I said, this all-encompassing worldview that actually harmonizes all these different aspects. Like you can critique something, but to give an alternative is entirely different. Like for example, we would like as national socialists, we would, to an extent at least, agree with Marx's critique of capitalism, but his alternative is not any better, right? He gives the correct diagnosis, but he doesn't give the correct prescription. So that's
Um,
sort of like the same analogy, where yeah, you can say that the modern way of thinking is not ideal, it is not functional, but then you have to present an alternative that actually is
Well, don't you
functional.
think
You
the
know what I mean?
first thing to do is to like actually live in a way that's like fulfilling and not of what we view as like the poisonous element that controls society currently? Like, I guess you're thinking more on like a collective level, of binding people together on some sort of uh,
Not even necessarily.
foundation. Okay.
um, I mean, I agree, as I said, like yeah, it does have to, ultimately you have to start with yourself, right? And that's why, again, like Orthodox is not just like a set of, abstracted beliefs that you must hold to. It's not just like a set of, okay, I believe this, and that, therefore I'm Orthodox. And it's just like, it's also the praxis. It's the theory and the praxis. You have to, attend the liturgy. You have to, venerate the icons. You have to do all these different things to properly be called Orthodox as such, right? So I definitely agree. Yeah. And but the question becomes, like you're saying, okay, don't you think you have to live, in a quote unquote proper way
Master
to
yourself
then
first.
be able to? Yeah, for sure. But that's sort of like ill-defined, right? You have to define first what that entails. What does a proper lifestyle even look like, right? And that would be informed by your worldview by definition. Because like if you go to like a fag, right? You're gonna ask
Sure,
him.
you
He's gonna
have
say,
to
"Yeah,
put
I
your
live
ideas
properly."
into action, and the ideas come first.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with I mean, I don't see the yeah, I'm with you there. I don't see a contradiction.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. But just to get to the end of the sort of like line of reasoning, back to the whole epistemology question, which is okay. Well, if you have these laws of logic and all these abstract, universal, ontologically existent realities, how do you justify them? And then you need to give an answer for that. Otherwise, it's just arbitrary, and you don't really have a justification for it. And ultimately,
Wait, sorry,
as
what do I
far
need to
as
give an answer for? I got lost in ontological.
yeah, like again, if we agree that logic has an ontological existence, it is real, it is
Okay.
universal, it is mind independent, then you actually have to give a justification for it. Otherwise, it's just arbitrary, it's just random, right?
Well, what do you mean? I mean, that's where the morality comes in. That's my entire everything that I'm saying is that, yes, I see the utility in it. I see, its existence, I acknowledge it, but it doesn't, motivate me.
No, that's a separate question. I'm talking about like how do you
Isn't
even
that the exact
justify its existence,
wasn't
right?
that about
I'm not asking about
motivations? Like,
no,
what
I'm not asking about. Yeah, go ahead, finish
you're
your
just
thought.
asking me
Sorry.
to remain within the realm of logical abstraction.
Not really. No, I'm just asking. Okay, yeah, like there's motivation that's
You're
in the
like,
field
"Yeah,
of
I need to
ethics.
give a logical explanation for logic." Right? Isn't that kinda what you're saying? And
Yeah,
I'm
sort of, because
by logic, I mean, like, everything that it entails, like all the mathematical principles or the fucking laws of the
correct.
heavens or something, everything. Okay, yeah. So I'm like, "No, there's a logic that exists, but the" so you're saying, like, why it exists? That's what I'm saying, right?
Not the why, rather the how. Right? How does it exist?
But isn't
What
that
is the
just
grounding
further
for it?
within okay, but to me, that's the
That's like,
why.
yeah. Well, not really. The why is how do you utilize it and how do you make use of it, right? But I'm asking how. How does it even
No,
exist,
that's
right?
the
That's in
how.
the.
You use the verb how. I don't know. That's funny.
Wait, can you repeat that? Maybe I tripped up. Can you repeat that?
No, it's all good. It's just that's where we're at an impasse. Like I think it's a why and you think it's a how.
Correct.
And we
Yeah.
just keep coming back to the same. We're like looking at the same thing and I'm like, "Yeah, but why?" And you're like, "Yeah, but how?"
Are you asking why it exists or why you can utilize it and how? I guess like it's like
No,
a
I'm
longer
just saying
question,
like
right?
we get to a point where we acknowledge like the logic and all of its implications, everything that it
Correct.
entails. And I'm with you. There's a lot. Okay.
Mm,
But
sure.
not everything, but a lot. Um
Okay. Yeah, not everything for sure.
or it's not sufficient. You could say it's necessary. I mean, I'm on board with that even too. But
Mm,
Um, and you're saying like
no
how? Well, isn't
disagreement.
that just a further like extension of the logic?
Sure. I like listen. The question, the basic question is, okay, you believe in logic. What reason
Sure.
do you have to believe in logic? Right. That's the question.
Yeah, and to me that's a question of why, right?
It's not just why though. You cannot reduce it to just motivation. I am like compelled to believe in logic because it has utility. That's not just the question. It's like okay, we already agreed that it is universal and it is you know ontological as such.
Sure.
And so the next question becomes, well, okay, why do you even believe that? How, can you give a justification for how it exists? Right?
Because logic, it's like it's the answers within itself, right?
That does it justify itself? Well, that's sort of like a
It's
circular. That's like
self-perpetuating,
circular
right?
reasoning,
Yes,
right?
that's my entire
But it's not. No, actually, it's not just self-justifying because
doesn't
that would be a
logic
fallacy,
and
right?
everything it entails like perpetuate itself?
You can say that in a finite sense, but we're talking about the more meta level question, which is like in the field of meta logic, right? How does logic logically function? That's sort of like the entire field, and that's the question, right? So yeah, we agree that logic exists. We're already on the same page on that front. But then the question becomes, okay, how
But
does it
isn't
exist?
that
Can you
just
give it a justification?
exploring? So you just want to like do logic and math,
You're
but
cutting
that's
out.
like
Can you repeat that?
I just said you want to do logic and math, and I can see the utility in like exploring those things.
I'm not saying that I
Go ahead.
want to do. I'm not saying that I want to do logic and math. I'm saying that if we agree that logic exists, then we have to have a justification to even like to give an account for logic as such, right? Because wait, I'll walk you through
Are you
the
talking about
line
like
of reasoning from
a
start.
moral reason? Like I'm sorry, man. I'm trying to understand what you're saying, but I just
It's not moral. It's not moral. Like, listen, I'm gonna walk it through like from the start, right? So we're talking about knowledge initially, right? That was like the starting point. Okay, how do you justify knowledge, right? You need preconditions for knowledge, right?
well, hold on, hold on.
That's
I'm
like
sorry. We gotta stop because we gotta clarify our terms here. What do you mean by justify?
justify as in give a grounding for, give an accounting for the concept that you're appealing to.
So like explain, sort of.
I guess, and
What's the
I'm
difference
using it in the
between
sense of,
justify and explain?
well,
Like
explain. I mean,
justify,
the
like
nuance would be,
justice has like a moral implication to it, like the word.
well, I'm using in like the Platonic philosophical sense, as in justify true belief, as in, yeah, you could have a belief that is true, but is it justified? Do you have a good reason? Do you actually have a reason to believe what you believe?
Oh, a
Right? You can
logical
coincidentally, yeah,
explanation. A logical. Okay,
right. Because, like, for example, you could
that's
have
what
like
you're
a,
asking. You're asking me what is the logical like justification for logic?
what is the logic of logic? Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
metalogical
that's what I
question. What is
mean.
logic
How is
of
that not
logic?
circular? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly, exactly. It is circular, right? It is circular. That is my whole point, which is, how do you even justify that without appealing to logic once more? And then it's like circular reasoning, right? And
That's why I don't do
thus,
that.
correct, but you must do that from an empirical worldview. Otherwise, what
No,
would you
that's
do?
only
Like,
if
you're just
I'm
being
rooted in
arbitrary.
logic.
But you believe in logic. You already
It's
granted
not
that,
arbitrary. It's subjective.
which is by definition arbitrary, right?
It's not arbitrary. It's subjective. There's a subject. I mean, don't you think you're a subject?
I am a subject, but some things do transcend the realm of the subjective, right?
Sure,
Like, you
yeah.
would see, for example, like that a tree exists. It is not subject to personal interpretation. That tree
Um,
exists independent of my own subjective feelings on the matter. Is that not correct? It does objectively, as a matter of fact, exist,
yeah, probably, yeah.
right? So that's sort of like the whole thing. It's not really subjective. It
No,
has
but
to be objective by definition.
there is a subjectivism exists though, right? Like people like subjective experience exists
Certainly,
logically.
yeah. I mean, you could say, for example, like, oh, I prefer, this flavor of ice cream over that flavor. Yeah, that is, definitionally subjective. But we're not talking about like tastes and preferences. We're talking about something that actually does exist, right? Ontologically, as we agreed.
Logic,
So
yeah.
that's like outside of the realm of subjectivity. It has to be objective by necessity, by its very nature.
Sure. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm with you there. But then you're saying like what's
Sure.
the objective nature of objective nature? It's like
What's the justification for logic? That is a question, right? You
what's the
like just
logical
like,
explanation for logic, right? Or
sure,
the
yeah, and
objective explanation for logic.
correct. Not just explanation. Explanation entails describing and explaining and detailing something about a given concept. But I'm
Mhm.
asking a further question, which is not just can you explain it? Can you, like, for example, lay out the laws of logic? Can you work out the inner workings of the logical system? I'm not necessarily asking that. I'm asking, how does logic even come to be? Do you even have a justification to believe in logic, right? Because you need to have a reason to believe in something, otherwise it's
No,
arbitrary,
you
right?
just reach out and grab it. It's just there, bro.
Look under the rock, right?
No, but really, like it is just there, right? I mean, it permeates everything. I'm with you. I'm on board with that.
Well, that's
That's
sort of
why,
like,
like,
yeah, go ahead,
not
yeah.
to invoke like the Greek gods, but I mean, like Apollo and reason and like the light, the idea of light being, uh, the like synonymous or anthropomorphized with
A
reason
virtue.
is yeah, and also a virtue. Sure. What's up, man? And yeah, I mean, what do you think of that?
I mean, I don't disagree. Unlike in classical theology, one would say that the good, the true, and the beautiful are all sort of like equated, right?
Mhm.
But that again doesn't really answer the actual question. That doesn't really give me a justification for why to believe in logic, right? I
Yeah, but
guess like if I
you're
had
not
to,
going to get a like moral justification with
it's not
that's
moral
like
though. It's epistemic, right? It's about how you know. It's not about is it good or is it bad.
well, that's not necessarily exactly what moral is, but
I mean, more or less, I'm sort of like phrasing it in simple terms, but I'm asking about epistemology, which is like how do you even know? How do you know that this is true? How do you have a justification for this belief
the
that you hold? Let me phrase it this way. Okay, let me
by
phrase it this way.
like the senses, I guess, would probably. I mean, I don't
Well,
like.
it's not
I mean, don't we get into like hypothetical discussions and abstractions about like brains in a vat and shit when we start doing this? But that's like that doesn't exist.
not
I'm like,
really. No,
well,
that's not where I'm going at all. But
okay, so
listen, let
you
me give
do
you let
think
me
the
give you an
body
example.
is like do you do think some kind of like vessel or our mind or what like is necessary? Something corporeal is
Necessary for
appropriate
what exactly?
for
For
logic,
what?
for us perceiving logic.
Yeah, it is necessary for perceiving it, but it's not necessary to like generate it, if you will.
Sure,
Like
and I'm with you
before
there
I
because
before
you
I
could
was born,
imagine. Okay, go ahead.
but I was just saying before I was born, or even if you want to go back farther enough, before humans existed, the laws of logic were still in place, right?
Yeah, and I'm willing to
They're not my
abstract with you
dependent.
there, and I'm on board. Like I'm willing to abstract a little bit,
Hmm.
but it's like again, you're going into like unknowns. Like you like um
Listen, I'll just give you an example to sort of like illustrate what I mean, right? So
okay.
again, I'm asking about justification, right? Which is justify true belief. That is to say, you can hold to a belief that is true, but for the wrong reason, and therefore it would not be justified, right? So we both agree that logic is true. Now the
Yeah, but
question is, do you have
just
a
to be clear, that's
justification?
just like a syllogism. But yes, okay.
Yeah, but does it follow though? And it kind of does. And I'll give you an
It
example, like
can,
a real
yeah.
life. I'll give you like an example to sort of like
No,
illustrate my point,
dude,
right?
I've
So
taken
for
like epistemology. Like I understand what you're doing. Like I've taken fucking
okay,
college epistemology classes. And I'm having the
cool.
same reaction I had then. I'm like, I want to go do something else. No offense, but it's okay. So like, what's your point? I understand what justified true belief is. Yeah,
Right. I'm
you
just
could
saying
have the
that
wrong reasons. I understand. You could believe something's true, and you could
correct.
be right for the wrong reasons. Yep, I'm with you.
Correct. Like for example, like some guy could walk into like a multiple choice, examination, and they would go in and they could,
Yeah, no, I
coincidentally by
got you.
accident just like randomly get everything right, but it's not justified, right? That's sort of what I'm getting at, and that's how it relates to logic. Okay, we both agree that logic exists, but do you have a good reason to believe that? That is what I mean by justification, right? And so ultimately, just to make a long story short, you, from an empirical sort of worldview, like an atheistic worldview, you can't really give a justification for logic. You have none, right? By
Yeah, I
definition,
don't. I
because you don't
believe in the
believe in.
unknown, but you don't know either. Like
Sure.
that's your whole thing, right? Like we just
Well,
we're saying the same thing over and over again. Like we can't establish like where logic came from. That's why they created the term operate priori or whatever. Like it's just out of the
that's
mind.
where I disagree, though. That's what that's
Okay,
what
but
that's what I'm
like you
saying. That
can't tangibly show. Like okay, well, show me where logic came from. Then I guess.
all right. So as I was making the analogy of knowledge and knowledge needing preconditions to be possible, right? Likewise with logic, you need certain preconditions for logic to even be possible and to be justified, right? And that's where there's like that sort of transcendental argument for God, right? As it's called. And basically the whole premise is, okay, we agree that knowledge exists, and if we agree that knowledge exists, therefore these preconditions for knowledge like logic must also by entailment exist. And then okay, why don't we have ask the further question, which is okay, then what are the preconditions for logic? Ultimately you must arrive at the Trinity, right? The Christian God. Ultimately that's sort of the whole thing, and I
Okay,
could flesh it out
uh,
more if you want, but that's like the
that's
basic
okay.
idea.
If that's what you believe, like Okay. I don't believe that, but
Well, it's not just again, it's not a
I
matter of like
appreciate
subjective
your
belief.
logic. Okay, well, I think it is.
Well, okay, let me make it a bit more
Oh
concrete, right?
no,
So
we're at an impasse. It's okay.
up to you, bro. I'm just saying it's
No,
not like a subjective thing that I feel as if this is, and I'm saying this is demonstrably the case, right? There's a difference.
logic. Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, you can demonstrate logic. Well, if you can demonstrate it to me, I guess like send me I don't know. Like I'm just not persuaded by.
I mean, you haven't even heard the argument, so there's nothing to be persuaded by yet, right?
I thought you just talked for like 2 minutes and then ended with, and that's why the Trinity exists or
No,
something.
I said that's the basic form of the argument. I said I could flesh it out, like give
Okay,
actual,
well, how about this?
concrete
Send me
examples.
what you consider to be the best theologians that make the
Hmm.
best logical arguments, and I will give
Hmm.
it a read. Now, if it's real long, I'll be honest, I probably won't read it all. But if you send me something and you're like, "Hey, screenshots," or "This is the best page," I'll read it. Okay,
Uh-huh.
if they've made the argument. So otherwise, like I just don't,
Sure.
I don't get. Yeah, and I think you're doing a great job, but
I could send you like a live stream. It is like explained by a guy like very succinctly, I would say.
is it one on one or is he talking to people?
No, just like himself. I mean, the guy does debates as well, but like a live stream, like him solo, just like sort of
Oh
going
yeah, you
through
can send it to me.
the
Yeah,
argument.
yeah, send it to me.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I don't know if you've heard of Jay Dyer. I assume you have.
Oh yeah, but I don't really can't say I've
He
heard
has
the
like sort
name.
of like a yeah. He has like a good exposition on the transcendental argument for God, right? So I could send you like a live stream where he goes just like solo, just himself, going through the argument and
Yeah, do that.
stuff like that.
I'll listen to it. But I can't
For
I can't
sure,
do
yeah.
this anymore. I'm sorry. Whoa.
Yeah, that's fine.